All right, guys. So what we're going to do here, I got Greg Scott, Kayleen, Aaron Rand, a few others here from the Firehouse team. I'll just basically give an overview of what this is. So tonight we're going to discuss wildland and urban interface tactics. So we're going to talk about different things that you might experience, in Canada and the U.S. when it comes to battling wildfires. Again, it's one thing to talk about different equipment like trenching and Pulaskis and all the heavy equipment that you need to form fire breaks. But I really want to get to the top level where we can discuss different strategies and other ways that, especially with the events that recently happened in Jasper, and then of course, out in the oil fields many years ago, we have a few individuals here that are from that area or that have worked in that area that can share their expertise. When we see a lot of those fires that have happened across Western Canada, we know that there's a definite challenge there for not only wildland crews, but we have seen industrial fire crews, nuclear fire crews, and even municipal firefighters get pulled into those type of emergency scenarios with or without training, right? So again, when we discuss this tonight, we just want to go through some of the overview of what you might expect in wildland events, and then talk about other ways that we can mitigate it. Tom, are you there? Can you take yourself off mute?
Yep.
Did Brent make it in?
Brent, can you get in?
No,
Oh, there he is. I see him.
Oh, he sees
him now. His name just popped up. Beautiful.
Okay, your name just popped up. We're good.
All right,
okay,
Tom. So while we let Brent in, why don't you talk to everybody here a little bit about what our fire mitigation group is, maybe some of the different companies involved, and then Greg and I can kind of take it from there.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Thank you. This is a great forum to get to know people. Obviously, face-to-face would be the next level, of course, but this gets us to talk to people across the country and beyond, actually, so it's awesome. So the Fire Mitigation Alliance Group is the group of individuals that have organized this. We've been working hard for the last couple of weeks, putting together a website, some banners for trade shows. And what we are is a cooperative group of vendors and experts in fire mitigation, not just wildfire. The topic of this event is wildland fire mitigation, but we're going to really be covering all the series of all these of webinars and seminars live that we're going to do. We'll do the full gamut from urban fire to rural fire to wildfire. So that'll be reflected in this. And we've got some great players that this team that's on this panel here, I think 20 to 30 years of experience in the fighting fires management and doing. I'm learning by osmosis by hanging out with you guys. And I've had 3 years working with Amplicam, which is the wildfire early detection software, where a camera sits on the top of a tower and detects wildfire from up to 30 kilometers away. And then we've got Dissolve, which is one of our partners. You guys have the great ability to do scenario-based training, leveraging AI and technology, online training, just amazing stuff. And you're going to go into more details on that.
For sure.
We got Fire Rain, which is gels, putting gels before, during, and after wildfires, or just fires in general. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the super high level, and we've got Justin on as the major sort of partner on this thing. You got you, Adam, with your Firehouse training, with your thousands of contacts, and I'm assuming almost 100 of them on here tonight. And then we've got Brent Sterling, who's an expert in fire mitigation tactics and management and doing, as well connected in the First Nations world.
Definitely.
So I think that's sort of the high level, and I think it's best to pass it back to you, Adam, to sort of lead us through this thing.
So again, what we're going to do here tonight, you know what, just based on time, we'll kind of save the introductions. This is going to be a consistent training event that we run every couple of months as we build this alliance. We've already reached out and have received many phone calls from different individuals, either from First Nations communities, rural, even other urban fire departments, when it comes to strategies and tactics in dealing with wildland fires and the impact that it would have even on a municipal community. Again, tonight is just a snippet of the things that we're going to talk about. Again, I strongly urge, I know we have some subject matter experts here tonight, in addition to our core group. We have emergency managers, we have individuals that work for fire marshals' offices across the provinces. We have other individuals in private industry, equipment manufacturers. So again, even after tonight, hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, whatever floats your boat, and we can maybe put together some extra training topics and content consistently over the next little while. Firehouse Training is looking at doing things a little bit outside of the box and partnering up with individuals like we have here tonight while we discuss some of these products, is just showcasing the ability for us to grasp technology and use it towards different firefighting tactics. So I do got my partner in crime here tonight, Greg Scott. We got Kayleen, Jacqueline, we have a few others. We're just going to go through some content here and then talk about different products and strategies that we are starting to see in wildland firefighting. So again, tonight we'll talk about overview of strategies and command structures and focus more on tactics and strategies in dealing with wildland. When it comes to wildland and urban interface, it's where wildland fires meet that urban or suburban environment. And believe me, there's a set of challenges there. The importance of understanding that interface and how it increases that risk to the wildland areas and also residential homes and others that could be affected. We know that when it comes to wildland tactics, it's certainly not going to work when you're looking to protect exposures such as residential homes, or maybe even looking at different products like Fire Rain Eco Gel or other things that we can use to protect some of these areas from fires. Greg helped me develop this program. Again, thank you, Greg. In your experience when it comes to your time in the military and some of your wildland experience, when it comes to risks and challenges, what are things that you're seeing, especially when it comes to military bases across Canada, for the chances of wildfires impacting them?
Well, it's quite prominent, especially on the West Coast. Most times we have a lot of, they call range fires. So they do live ammunition and catch the ranges on fire. CFB Wainwright or in Suffield, they had I think 500 acre wildfire on the base because of a ammunition. So they had to get mutual aid from the local departments, the ministries, trying to get equipment in there. Like, the bases are limited what they have for equipment for response. They have a couple of wildland trucks, a couple of airport fire trucks, etc. But other than that, they don't have the manpower or personnel to, start doing fire lines, trenches, etc. like that. So they relied on local jurisdictions to help out with the wildfires. Even here in Base Borden, we had one probably 2019. It was quite a substantial fire. We ended up losing one of our airport fire trucks, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
So we know that fire spread's going to be, an issue from vegetation to even residential exposures, or even, industrial facilities like yourself or military bases. The access issues are going to be an issue either for firefighting vehicles or others. The evacuation difficulties, do you have residents protect in place, or do you have them evacuate? And then, of course, those unpredictable weather conditions like strong winds. Kayleen, are you here on the chat tonight?
Yep, I'm here, Adam.
Kayleen, tell everyone a bit about your background. You work for us here at Firehouse as well, but on some of the calls that you got from your post in emergency management for the province when it came to dealing with fires, Indigenous communities, and the challenges that you saw when dealing with wildland fires here in Ontario.
Yeah, so my background's in emergency management, and I've been in emergency management probably for about 5+ years now. So I used to deal a lot with Indigenous communities in Northern Ontario. So a lot of times when fire season did come, we would have to mitigate risks. So some of those things would include removing individuals from that community. So we would make sure that individuals who are at highest risk, so that could be elders, women and children, we would move them to host communities. And we would do this sometimes prior to when the fire would actually be close to the community itself.
Okay.
So we would either put them on buses or planes, put them into a host community, and mitigate the risk that way. So a lot of times just kind of making sure how far fires are, the distance away from the communities they are, kind of gauging that, what kind of weather's coming in, is the wind blowing in a direction that's going to affect the First Nation community, and just work with statistics and data that way as well.
Interesting. Yeah, there'd be a lot to manage, especially when you're getting calls and then trying to produce different resources for them that they would need in those different areas. Brent, I know you have a bit of experience as well, working with some of the Indigenous communities, and even with your background as a drone expert, what's your opinion so far on dealing with technology like drones, and even your experience at the management level and dealing with wildland here in the province and even across Canada?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I have been, I have responded to wildland fires, tornadoes, floods, those type of events, but across Ontario, and in fact, even across Canada. Um, the use of technology, it was slow on the uptake. I've been running the drone program for about 8, 9, working on 9 years now. And initially, the uptake on new technology was relatively slow, but that trend is changing, and there's a lot more adoption of technology, such as drones in concert with products such as Amplicam, those type of camera type systems for early detection. You know, anybody who's taken fire college courses or fire training knows that, you know, between the incipient stage of the fire and detection is the big wild card, right? Everything else, the responders can pretty much control with assembly and response and all that type of good stuff. But detection is the wild card in the field. I'm working with some communities in northern Quebec, specifically the Cree Nations government. And this year they were pretty lucky. They had a couple of relatively small fires, but last year they were really busy. They had some very significant fires that put their communities at risk. I don't see wildland fires getting any better. I'm not a PhD in environmental engineering or anything else like that, but just looking at the effects of climate change, and I only see the wildland fire issue getting more and more complex for all services to get their heads wrapped around.
Well, that's a great point, Brian. I know you and I both coming from the training industry. We were doing some online training for a couple departments out west, from incident command to even some industrial classes. And they were specific about the fact that they wanted wildland components into their training that we provided for their members. It's a huge issue. It's certainly not going away. And again, when you're looking here at different tactics for structure defense, for example, prioritizing structural protection for homes, importance of defensible space, using fire-resistant materials. My experience years ago when I was out in Yellowknife and speaking with some of their firefighters out there during the wildfires that came as far north as their area, large bulldozers, tree trimming, and we're talking just taking down acres and acres of vegetation to put in these massive fire breaks that will be there for decades to come. Like, this isn't a one and done fire break. They literally changed the landscape because they know the risk is so prevalent. David Heideman, I know you're here tonight from Fire Rain. If I could put you on the spot as well, my friend, your product surprisingly has had a great impact on the wildland community. I saw with Quincy and Peter Sells, they showed me a video of even using some of your Fire Rain Eco Gel behind the trains and train tracks to minimize any fires in and around rail facilities. You want to talk a bit about your product at Fire Rain and what you're seeing now with the advancement in dealing with wildland fires?
Sure thing. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah.
So EcoGel is the Fire Rain product, and first thing, you can get it from the name. It's a gel. It is not a foam. So we make water stick to things. So depending on what you're coating, be that a house, be that a forest, be that the forest floor for controlled burn applications, we can be part of that fire break strategy. And certainly this summer, we were very successful with working with CN to treat tracks north of Fort Nelson, where they had impending forest fires coming across the only access and egress from an indigenous community in northern BC. So, and we're using that same tactic with the mining sector, specifically mines that have their own rail spurs, to make the tracks safer, both for the preventative of grinding and all of that, but also for the active component of wildfire mitigation. So because our product sticks, we can do things like coat hydro poles in advance, we can coat houses, making, and you know, it is a short-term fix, a short-term part of the solution, but we've had great success with controlled burn applications, and we actually demonstrated our product at CFB Borden this last summer, and they're quite interested currently in working on the firing range comments that Greg mentioned just a little bit before, because we can go in pre-coat and then they can get on with their range activities. So there's lots of applications for our product, but within the wildfire and the urban interface aspect, it's coating, doing advanced burns to control the fire load, and then being able to treat houses, egress routes for highways and sides of highways and that type of thing to give you some more time and mitigate the embers from fires is a huge one in the urban area.
So
anyway,
what everyone here needs to know, as well as David, from an electric vehicle fire to wildland, fires are burning differently now. And to the aspiring firefighters here, or those that are currently, volunteers, career, or even part-time, we need to have answers for these questions. The whole let it burn or let a building or even a forest burn itself out, or even that of an electric vehicle, those are not good answers. If you look at any firefighter interview or municipal fire test, any answer that you give typically is going to be action-based. So as firefighters, on the job, we need to know that we need to find actionable tactics and strategies to handle these events. So when it comes to things like fire rain, when it comes to different products out there like Amplicam, sensor technology, different ways to handle some of these events, whether it's an electrochemical fire and like an EV, or a class A or B fire, we are seeing the reduction of foams now. We're looking for more fluorine-free products out there because of the cancer-causing agents. We as firefighters need to understand the different ways that we're going to fight these fires, but also the safest, most efficient way possible. And that's why we're bringing everybody here together. Again, Wildland is just going to be one aspect of this Fire Mitigation Alliance, where we're going to have individuals from all walks of life and all different types of technology or firefighting industries. You can come forth and share some of this content, because it's very important that, especially the aspiring firefighters, you need to know this. You need to be on the cutting edge of technology. Individuals like myself, up to 15 years on the job, and others that have 30 plus years on the job here tonight, we know that we need to be able to adapt and be flexible, and this is the only way we can do it. So we're looking at wildland issues. Thanks for that, by the way, David. Appreciate that. We need to establish evacuation zones. We need to coordinate with emergency services. We need to understand that safety of firefighters and residents is of utmost importance. But when you're looking at different things like the incident command system and putting that together, it doesn't matter if it's wildland, an industrial fire, high-rise event, there needs to be a structure. Greg, if I can put you on the spot, my friend, what have you noticed between your time as a municipal deputy chief and military and some of those differences in incident command structures, and then tying that maybe into wildland or other ways to handle these large scale events?
So from the municipal side, it's pretty well structured. It's been around for a while. On the military side of the house, it's more depending on the type of incident. They have a program, it's called Oscar. So what it is, there's each individual's officers in the military that come out and kind of are your resource sector for more or less. Your incident commander is your officer on scene, of course, like everyone knows. But we can liaison between these Oscar group that, if we need equipment, foam products, whatever. These individuals are kind of our resource managers for us. So having that incident for them, large scale events, be it on an airfield, large hangar fires, etc. We have those. Getting into the municipal side, we all have that incident command program. We don't really see, liaison officers, operations sectors, planning, stuff like that on the municipal unless it's a really large scale event. Safety officers, yes, you might get a public information officer, but kind of relating the two to, between the two. On the military side, in a large scale event, this incident command structure comes into effect right away, as opposed to, a military or a civilian entity or municipality.
No, makes sense. Eric Lucko, if you mind if I put you on the spot, my friend, I know you got backgrounds with different agencies. Can you talk a bit about some of your experience from managing emergencies and then dealing with the local fire department, just as a whole when it comes to that ICS being put into action? What's been your experience, Eric?
Yeah, so like through emergency management for the city of Guelph, that's where I'm at. I'll get involved in some of the major events. I mean, you don't need someone like me for a small fire where you've got a platoon chief that can handle it and carry on. But last year we had an apartment building that had to be evacuated. So that's 60 people. So when I arrive on site, the first thing I'm doing is talking to that platoon chief, what's happening? And I need to know, things like, has FIS been called? That's important, right? Are they, are these people getting back in that night? Or are they out for days or weeks? Did the sprinkler system or fire suppression system discharge? Well, that doesn't get replaced, in an hour. You've got a fire alarm system, life safety devices. Those need to be reset. So you could be, in and out. So for my role, the fire, I take over from the fire, and then suddenly you've got 9 or 10 different agencies that you're trying to coordinate.
Exactly.
That IMS system here that we talk about,
yeah,
that's key. That's holy scripture to us in emergency management, because I'll be dealing with 60 people are out of a building. Well, where are we going to lodge them? How are we going to transfer them? Some of them have cars, some of them don't. Some of them have pets as Humane Society involved. So you have a lot of different hands, and that IMS structure really. It takes chaos and gives it some solidity and structure so that we can do what we got to do.
I like that, Eric. That's perfect. That was actually a perfect segue. You didn't even know it into our next partner that we have here, Justin Bruner from Desisolve. We've had the chance over the last few months, especially with the incident command, the electric vehicle, high-rise, industrial firefighting courses that we run typically by the week here at Firehouse. We've been able to use this software and platform directly into our training. Most recently, Justin, if you got a couple minutes here, brother, just tell us a bit about Desisolve and what that platform's all about. And then again, I'm putting you on the spot too. How are you going to integrate that maybe into some wildland stuff for us in the future as we start dealing with different agencies, whether it's Indigenous communities with Brent or even others that are looking for some of our services?
Yeah, thanks, Adam, and thanks for having me here tonight. So at Desisolve, we've really been pushing ourselves to create a platform to get firefighters, even emergency responders, trainers in front of people, putting them, away from computers, out there doing what they do best, which is training. And we've created our Assist platform that does just that. When we think of our days as anybody as a trainer or educator, I've been an educator for over 16 years now. I quickly fell into the trap of just reusing content over and over again because I didn't have the time to either update it or create new stuff. Yeah. So I quickly realized that, that starts to get stagnant. People will go through these evolutions as they go through training, and they do it 2 or 3 times. It starts to get, set as muscle memory. You get 5 to 10 times. Now they're not thinking about it. Right. And if you get to that point, it's not good, right? You're not pushing people hard. So the tool we've created and platform we've created takes training to the next level. It allows us to create scenarios based off of personnel, based off of equipment, based off location, based off of props that you have available to you, and based off of a lot of the information that we've given the system and we control. It'll generate various scenarios for you and keep yourself as a training officer, but also your department on their feet, because it's going to be giving you new stuff every time you generate a scenario, right? And it's adaptable. It's in real time. We're keeping up with all of the standards. And by user input, It keeps it up to real time with new equipment that's coming in that fire departments are using. And we also are looking into various ways of helping departments write out and deal with their SOGs, SOPs, and two, on how we can integrate JPRs right into training, right into scenarios, so everybody's checking off those important boxes as they go through their training. And we're really looking for feedback as individuals are using our system. And on the next slide, I can talk a little bit about some of the things we have coming up. We have integration with mass casualty events that we have set into our system. So looking from an incident command point of view, we can look at how we can bring that in from a larger scale event. We're going to have the ability to have AI-driven lesson plans based off of scenarios that have been developed in the system, and then the ability to track all of this stuff over time, so you can see what you've trained to through the throughout the year, and monitor that and see if there's any sort of gaps in your training. So it can make recommendations off that. And then we're also looking at, the chat bots that exist out there, but how we can take that methodology, bringing it back into our systems, and have trainees actually communicate and ask questions out of a scenario and have that one-on-one interaction in real time after a training evolution is completed.
I appreciate that. The best way to describe what Justin was showcasing here is we can basically take any type of fire scenario. It'll utilize the NFPA 1001 content that I've created on behalf of Firehouse training with standards that I've learned from fire departments or even hazmat conferences across North America that I've attended, and put this into a program that will spit me out live scenarios that we can use in training for case studies. So whether it's an incident command, whether it's a high-rise fire, it will give you tactics and strategies from how to catch a standpipe to how to extinguish or suppress an electric vehicle in real time in this platform. So for myself, where, not to toot my own horn, and other instructors that are here, we're able to adapt and do that on the fly from our experience, right? While we teach, that's what makes a good instructor. You can use a scenario to better ensure that you're teaching to a standard. OFM, NFPA, health and safety guidelines, or whatever content you feed it. Am I correct with that, Justin?
Yep, 100%. And what we see a lot of now with going with the scenario-based approach is retention is definitely a lot higher with that, with the information that firefighters or emergency service responders are taking on, and it keeps things lively for us as both trainers and then as trainees, because you're always seeing and getting new content.
I appreciate that, brother. So again, you've probably seen that through my social media, everybody, but this is the future, using AI technology, using other standards that are out there to put together the highest level of training that we always try to do here at Firehouse, and many others that are here, on the group tonight. So again, in sticking with incident command, we need to understand that there's multiple agencies in these wildland events. And how do we unify the command between all those people? Kayleen, in your experience, what were some of the challenges from the provincial standpoint in dealing with municipalities to put forth the logistics you needed to handle these events? Did you find that because they're, low frequency type events, that there was a bit of a learning curve from your department working with the municipalities, or were some of the municipalities in Northern Ontario and even other areas and agencies you dealt with, were they pretty well versed in what they needed to handle a wildland event through that planning cycle?
Yeah, so I think with any kind of emergency, it doesn't matter, small community, large community, there's always something. Oops. Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Sorry about that. So like I was saying, a small community, large community, doesn't really matter. Anytime there's an emergency, there's always something to learn and take away from. A lot of times when working with northern communities, it is a learning curve for everyone. Sometimes the community might not necessarily be up to date, or they do things the way that they think is the best way. And us as the province have to take that into consideration as well. Just because we have the mindset of doing something one way might not necessarily work exactly to the T or the perfect way that we think it's going to. A great example of this is when we're using our resources and statistics and we're going, oh, the fire doesn't look like it's going to be that bad this year.
Yep.
Like we actually, it might bypass you guys, but you have people within the community who have seen fires for however many years, and they go, no, actually, there's been these warning signs that the fire season is going to be severe, or it's not going to be as severe. So taking that knowledge and information from both sides and working together. And there's nothing better than to sit down at the end of the season and go, what went well, what didn't go well, what can be done better for next year or the next fire season, if it's the fire season, if it's flood season,
Yeah.
for any emergency in general. So there's always something to take away from it.
That's fantastic, Kayleen. You look at any large scale event, wildlands, natural disasters, you name it. Typically in the post-incident reports, you're hearing about incident command breakdown and communications issues. So if you can see here on the slide, we know that there's different ways for individuals to communicate in wildland areas and rural environments. But here's where things get tricky. We're not talking about just tactics here tonight. We're talking about just the crews. If there's a fire impeding on a nuclear plant or an industrial facility or a military base, like we've seen, in Western Canada, there are definite challenges there to understand how the province's communication will work within the evacuation or response from these different larger entities. Like I said, you have nexus plants, you have the military, you have nuclear plants. How are they going to respond? Are they going to evacuate or have individuals stay in place? Jacqueline Martins, if I can put you on the spot, I know that you did quite a bit of work in the private industry out in Western Canada. Can you talk a bit about how you would deal with large scale events, either on site or when other things would happen in the community, and how they were communicated to you from an emergency management standpoint at the big oil and gas plants that you worked on?
I'm so sorry. What was the question?
Just talking a bit about your experience in the communication side of municipal outskirts, of dealing with you as a health and safety rep or specialist in the plants. Did you find that sometimes there's a communication breakdown, or would you guys usually beat to your own drum and deal with your own response inside those facilities on your own?
No, typically, because there's such extensive exercise programming and requirements, my expectation is that we would be prepared. So to sort out all those little kinks and figure out where the interoperability issues could be, or where equipment doesn't align, that my expectation would be that would all be pre-identified during the exercise phase. And there's in emergency response plans, there are risk assessments, and in those risk assessments, we look at the worst case scenario or the worst probable scenario. So hopefully in your worst case scenario, even if you don't think perhaps a wildfire could be probable, or even if you don't think that there could be, I'm losing my words here.
Just a large scale event of any kind outside of your workplace.
Correct. And in terms of interoperability, I mean, one thing I do want to highlight is that in terms of Aboriginal communities, these communities have been around for so long. Mm-hmm. So listening to their wisdom is beyond important. If they can tell that there's going to be a year of significant wildfires, you listen to that. And it's so important to train with these communities as well, because they can't anticipate what's going to happen. So exercising with them and training with them beforehand is so critical.
No, I love that. And that's some great experience. And again, with Jacqueline's background, emergency management, again, health and safety, you name it. It's interesting to see that private industry training is so paramount, maybe compared to some municipalities that might not be up to snuff on SOGs and SOPs. And an example I think I talked to you about before off the record, Jacqueline, was CBRNE and response for active shooters or white powder calls or bomb threats and things like that happen in cities like Toronto and others, where some cities are better prepared than others. And the one thing that I can say, especially with my experience in the private industry, from having a health and safety specialist like yourself, there is a certain level of accountability to meet expectations. And I could tell in the tone of your voice, you know, your ability to have those expectations already be met is there because of the requirements rolled out within your workplace. You're responsible for your own sector rather than some municipalities that have so many moving parts that it makes it difficult to even plan an exercise, to even get together with other Aboriginal communities or neighboring fire departments to plan these training events, right? Brent, if I can go back to you, my friend, again, with your experience, you know, as a station chief and even other provincial entities, what's your take on getting everybody together for the training and risk assessments from a municipal standpoint or a provincial standpoint? Is your opinion a little bit different than that of Jacqueline's, where she's only dealing with her private industry?
Well, I think the one point I'll make here is that if you haven't planned for it, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? So
Yep.
One of my core product services is in the risk assessment master fire plans, where you go in, you take a deep dive in the community, take a look at their risks, take a look at their capacities, take a look at their training, take a look at their infrastructure, all that important type of information. And then when you're done that, identify the next steps to, you know, do that gap analysis, and then come up with a program to close the gaps. From my experience in First Nation communities, and I am very proud of the fact that I am First Nation myself, they're incredibly resilient people who, for the most part, know what to do for most of the frontline type of emergencies they face. Their capacities are run very deep. Now, does that mean that they don't have some limitations or some areas where they need assistance? Absolutely, but any service in the country has face those same challenges. So from my perspective, I like spending, obviously I do a lot of training as well. In fact, I was just up at a very, very northern community in Quebec. I could have thrown a rock and hit Nunavut from where I was, but up there teaching auto extrication to their firefighters, and they're absolutely brilliant students with great tools and equipment. But they do sometimes need a little bit of guidance and expertise that they may not have in-house, largely because the volume of the calls that they deal with those type of emergencies are lower. But you know, I think someone else mentioned it, those low frequency, high impact type of incidents where the hazardous materials or the white powder or those type of emergencies, in the community that I was in last week, the next closest community is 3 hours at best. That's with lights and sirens. So they have to be more resilient and more self-sufficient on multiple fronts, which in itself presents a lot of challenges. Because even if they were to reach out to other communities that are close by and or any provincial resources, they're hours and hours and hours out. So they certainly have their own challenges. But I think my focus is identifying those risks and get the plans in place as quickly as you can before the emergency.
Well, it sounds positive. I mean, especially those remote communities, you know, there is no one else that's going to come in and help them, right? And when you call the fire department, you know, large or small, you're the ones responsible to mitigate and handle that emergency to the best of your ability. And again, those remote communities, tons of challenges. But the thing is, they're able to adapt and have probably quite a few answers on what they would do. Compared to a spoiled big city firefighter like myself, right, where we have resources coming out of every corner. So, no, that's fantastic. Thanks for that feedback. Again, when you're looking at after action reviews and learning from these wildland incidents, you know, some of the things that I've seen, again, my experience here, Greg, maybe you can lead into this too, the communication breakdowns, as Jacqueline said, the lack of planning, that lack of emergency at previous exercises to have everybody understand what their capabilities are within the municipality, between agencies, looking at not just lack of training, there could be a lack of equipment.
That's a big thing, Adam. Like going to actually Jasper, talking to a third party out there, is the outside agencies, their equipment was not compatible with the local fire departments.
That's right. I remember that.
So the fire departments in town were all standard threaded hose, and the outside agencies were all Storts. So they couldn't supply their trucks. They couldn't supply water. They didn't have the fittings. So it comes down to, like Jacqueline said, having interoperability and training and cross-training and training with outside agencies. It was proven in Jasper that if this outside department could have those other resources, or even just the fittings to adapt to, supply water. It's the same thing with the military bases. All our fittings on our trucks are Storts, but we now have fittings that are compatible with the municipal side of the house. So if trucks do come in from outside agencies, we can hook up to their trucks. They can supply water. So they have to know, we do the cross training now. It's the things like that have to be always ongoing.
Well, it makes sense. I know, Greg, you had put together some of the case study here for the Fort McMurray fires. I had the chance to meet many of them years ago, I think in 2016, 2017, when they came to Toronto for a big concert benefit that we had. But based on my experience and understanding, some of the issues they dealt with out there was the preparedness and the evacuation planning, that overview of their incident command and communication, the lack of something as simple as having enough air bottles for the firefighters, both because municipal firefighters wear air bottles, where that of a wildland firefighter, they'll just have a wet rag around their mouth. That was a huge issue because they did not have enough compressors and air for even the municipal firefighters to wear to combat those fires for weeks on end. I heard that firsthand from the firefighters. What did you see, Greg, in dealing with this that kind of stuck out to you from a not just a training standpoint, but even a resiliency standpoint and other things that they had to deal with and go through?
Just I know personally one of the local firefighters in the municipality, doing their job and then going back and watching your house burn down because the fire was moving so fast. 90% of those guys and women on the crews were dealing with other structure fires within the municipality.
Yep.
Going back to their residence and then noticing their, having their residence burned to the ground. But that fire was so fast and fast moving. It just, it was jumping natural fire breaks in the roads because of the weather patterns. It was jumping and catching hotels on fire, 200 feet away. It was just a very, very fast moving fire. And listening to the incident commander in a seminar, it's just like bringing teams up from Edmonton, Cold Lake.
Industrial fire crews, military crews, it was all hands on deck. Bringing 90,000 people needed to be evacuated. And that was for weeks on end.
Yeah. The resources, they're having water bombers, we're kind of spread thin. Our water bombers are going from all province to province. And, we have fires in Ontario. We have to protect our province, but we can't. They were sending firefighters from all across Canada and the U.S. to deal with this incident.
Well, see, the thing is, and from what I'm looking at here, especially when I speak with other firefighters in Yellowknife when they were dealing with those wildfires a couple of years ago, do you have enough of the tools, fire retardant materials? Bulldozers are huge. The heavy equipment was a huge logistical nightmare in all of these wildland fires that I've seen from a post-incident paperwork standpoint. Having enough helicopters or aircraft to deal with that fire retardant. And then, of course, the home sprinkler systems. The fact that I've seen municipal firefighters having to go and install these exposure protection systems doesn't happen quickly for a firefighter that's never put one together, right? And I heard that took a lot of time, especially whether it was Yellowknife, Fort McMurray, Jasper recently, from the individuals I've talked to. This stuff doesn't happen quickly when it comes to the overall response.
Bringing those resources in from outside areas is now, where are you going to house these individuals in a moment's notice? Like you're going up to fight these fires. Are they in hockey rinks and hotels? But a lot of these things were burnt to the ground. So they were staying in camps, so having the military come in and setting up camps and bringing in extra manpower to assist and bring in food to the frontline workers. It's just things like that.
So I may or may not have heard this from a local fire department. I won't say the cities. There's been quite a few wildfires the last few years, but basically the firefighters' families were told to evacuate the city. So the firefighters said, well, we're going to tow all of our camping trailers and park them right in the parking lot of the fire station. There's no safer spot in the municipality than right in front of the fire station, right? So as firefighters from all over Canada would come in and they would rotate shifts, they would stay in their campers just outside of the fire station. So it became a bit of this little camping / slumber party where they would do 24 on, 24 off, 24 on, 24 off. And they would only stay within the perimeter of that fire station. They actually wouldn't go to their homes. Based on the fire breaks and other things that took place, they would stay right in the trailers in the most protected area that they had. And that was near the fire station with the protection of all those apparatus. So to hear that story, that lasted, a couple of weeks on end, until the families could come back to the community. Although it was a very stressful time, some of the stories I heard was that the firefighters certainly made the most of it with their little trailer park party there. But again, yeah, this just talks about the adaptability. They couldn't go home. They knew that they packed up everything they could in the trailers from a seriousness standpoint to be prepared to do the long haul of shifts at the fire station and then living out in the wherever they could off duty. And off duty was right in the parking lot of the fire station. And these are the extreme measures that do happen when it comes to events like this. For the last few minutes here, Tom, I wouldn't mind discussing with you and Tom, tell everybody kind of how our group came together, our chance that you and I met at a business expo there quite a few months ago and partnering up here with other, industry specialists, but also talk a bit about the importance of being proactive in these events and not reactive. Everything we talked about here tonight was more from a reactive standpoint. We talked a bit about planning and exercising, but talk a bit about your product as we finish up here tonight, how that's going to be the future of wildfire sensor technology.
Yeah, thanks. I must say my experience in this space is a couple of years now compared to all the stories I'm hearing there. Obviously, lots of war wounds and examples and samples that you guys can talk for hours on, and we'll keep doing these sessions here. What I do here is that there is I think there is more proactive discussion around what we've talked about so far tonight than just reactive. And I think the whole thing that's written from the U.S. Senator, there's been a lot of things written that we need to move to more of a proactive approach to everything. And I think training that Justin brings to the table and spraying gel on things in advance of a fire, those are all proactive things. And what I'm working with Brent is very much about planning a region to make sure they're ready, and we've heard that from all the presenters. Is like, let's do the planning and the training and the testing to make sure we're ready when it happens. So that's all proactive.
Yeah.
And so where I'm coming from and my experience in this wildfire world is around the Amplicam product, which is very much about detecting wildfire or wildland fire from a distance so that you can go out and attack it before it actually rages out of control. So the idea that you pick up the smoke from within 30 kilometers. Unreal. And you can basically identify it from a chimney fire from 30 kilometers out in radius. So you've got a camera on the top of a tower above the tree line. It rotates. There's a thing, and when you see here the 90% reduction in firefighting and acres burned is from that rotation and detection and differentiation between a chimney fire that's always there versus a wildfire smoke, and that you guys can go out and attack it when it's still the size half the size of a hockey rink, where it's still manageable, and you can attack it in minutes and less than an hour, as opposed to it's raged for an hour and a half, and now it's to the point where it's almost uncontrollable at that point. And we've got a track record of doing that around the world with 3,000 forests. and it was Greg Scott that mentioned with the bases. By the way, we in Canada, in Ontario, we have had our first installation 2 years ago at Petawawa in northwest of Ottawa. It's a military forest. It is protecting a nuclear facility. It's actually stopped at least one fire we know of in Algonquin Park, because that 30 kilometers rotates there. But we know in the first 3 months that we installed it two winters ago, and that big season we had stopped 8 fires by, I think, the end of June, all within the military forest, because they blow stuff up and they don't want the town of Petawawa burning down, because that's bad PR. So we've got a track record of doing that, and certainly Greg want to talk to you about what we can do at different military bases in Canada and beyond, obviously.
So is that, sorry to interrupt you, Tom, that program you have, Amplicam, being set up on the base, does it send a signal to the fire hall and saying they've detected a wildfire or a fire in the region?
Yes. They actually work with the civilian as well as the military firefighting. And in fact, I know that system that's on the base has actually let the civilian fire group know of some fires that they've gone out and put out. And thank you very much, sort of thing. So it's been a good relationship, civil as well as military.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I think this is a game changer, Tom. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
There a few months ago now, and we've developed this relationship. The fact that we can use this AI technology, the sensor technology to detect wildfires. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you spoke with some experts out there near Jasper that, with all due respect, this would have 100% prevented a catastrophe like we're seeing here in the country. And if you could just tell everybody, from my research, your product is primarily worldwide and a bit in the US, but very limited in Canada. A few government agencies, a couple military bases, very, very limited. And, not to get too political here tonight, but at the end of the day, when you see budgets and money being funneled in other areas, I think we need to speak up and make some change, because this is a game changer for firefighting sensor capability.
Yeah, and I'm pretty confident that the $800 million that was spent, that the claim is going to be on Jasper, should have been prevented if we had put at least one camera on the top of a tower in the center of Jasper, because that 30 kilometers, I think, would have detected that fire. I think it was only 20 kilometers out. But anyways, I'm not the expert on it, but that's my thought. But I think the analogy I want to leave you with is we won't build a house or a building without a fire alarm system in it. Why would we have a city or a town that's in a high risk area of a forested area without having a wildfire detection system that could detect something 30 kilometers out to protect the town nearby? So I'm just, for 50, 100 grand, we could do almost every town, basically.
It's incredible.
So that's what I'd leave you with.
And again, looking here at the operator display features, alert management for fire departments, camera management, different map layers, very, very specific. Kayleen, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you and I have been playing phone tag last few months. You've been super busy at Metrolinx. After what you're seeing here with this technology and then your time in emergency management, do you see this as a game changer for some of these rural communities, indigenous and others, for prevention?
100%, Adam. I totally think this is a huge game changer, specifically for the more northern communities or more isolated communities that there are within Ontario. If northern communities, First Nation communities up in northern Ontario can have a step ahead of wildfire season and know what's approaching, where it's approaching, and how it's going to approach, that's huge for them. They can put their foot forward and take action to mitigate the fires coming into their communities. It gives them the hand up within the fire season. And I think moving forward, this would be great. And a lot of First Nation communities would jump on board with this. This would be a game changer for a lot of them, instead of having that last minute, oh no situation that there's a fire and now we have to try to get out of the community because we kind of we didn't think it was going to be as bad this year compared to other seasons. It's definitely going to make a change for communities, 100%.
No, I appreciate that feedback. Again, when you're looking at the different entities, right, it's no different than, I'm in a larger municipal department, but when you're looking at the different entities, the government or agencies here, like we've got provincial wildlife management, we have mutual aid agreements, we have Canadian interagency forest fire centers, you have your provincial your POCs, your fire marshal's offices. There's so many different variables to communicate how this technology is available, but then integrating it with everybody. Brent, as we finish up here tonight, I wouldn't mind your feedback. You've worked in multiple levels of government and first response. Where do you see as a challenge when it comes to technology like this or other things that we want to bring to the forefront? You saw it probably first thing with drones and getting first responders to use this equipment.
Yeah, okay, so the biggest barrier to acceptance for the communities is, I would say most part they just don't know what they don't know.
That's a good point.
Right. For the most part, when I'm talking with communities and you start detailing options that they actually have to meet the specific challenges of the community, whether they're northern, urban, First Nations, or municipal. And the other thing you have to do is you have to demonstrate to them that it's that old saying, a penny of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? So once you explain to them the value in doing that work ahead of time, for the most part, you'll get buy-in.
Yeah.
But it really, really is just an education process, just like any other technology. If I think back to when I was a kid, a long time ago, there was no such thing as cell phones, and even if you wanted to go visit a friend, you had to bike across town, and hopefully maybe they were there. And you take a look at the integration of technology in our day-to-day lives now, it's hugely different. I think 5 years from now, particularly with the influx of wildland fires, particularly with the incidents of climate change and the impacts we all know what's facing us. I think the communities are going to start investing in their staff as far as training. I think they're going to start investing in infrastructure and preparedness. So our job, all of us here, as a complete culture of emergency responders, is to educate our decision makers at whatever level of government, educate them. And once we do that, buy-in, I think, will be coming along after that.
No, that's great feedback, Brent. Tom, I just want to answer that question for Grant, just in the group here talking about the home insurance, and then let's just do a quick follow-up as we finish up here tonight.
Yeah, and certainly talking to the insurance companies has been sort of silly based on the fact they complain like hell about writing checks for all these claims, and yet when you say, hey, we've got something that in an area the size of northern Alberta, we've cut the hectares burned and the firefighting costs in a region that size by 90%. It's absurd that they don't want to talk about it, and they didn't want to talk about it last winter. Maybe the Jasper claim of 800 million will get them to want to talk this year. But I guess we need some help from all parties to say, hey, there are solutions to this. Just what we've talked about tonight, not just my product or our product, but everybody's proactiveness and being proactive in what we're doing to reduce the damage that comes out from human and property damage. So I think this is one reason why we exist as this alliance, because we've got so many different ways to help a community, a company, you name it.
Oh, that's great. And then look at David here said that we have the same issues with EcoGel, having insurance, see the advanced benefits. David, you're right on the money there. When I call insurance companies, when doing my research in electric vehicle fires, from battery energy storage systems to a basic Tesla or Ford Lightning claim, the answers that you get are very minimal, and there's a big lack of knowledge there. So with that being said, I mean, that's the whole point of this alliance, everybody. I want to thank Brent, Justin, Tom, the gentleman, the Fire Rain, David, and then the rest of the group here. I think I saw Trevor as well. Again, thank you so much for joining us and putting this this group together. But for everyone else here that's just an attendee, if you feel that there's some some value that you can bring as well to our group, come forward. Feel free to follow up with our email. You're going to see us at trade shows, whether it's Northern Ontario, across Canada, or other ways that you'd like to get involved. Please reach out to us. Please do. As you know, follow us on social media at Firehouse Training, and I'm going to do an email after this, a blast with everyone else as part of our Fire Mitigation Alliance group with their contact information. But right now, as Brent said it best, there is an education gap here, from technology, from strategies, from tactics. And the only person that's going to make the change, and I see this every single week, I teach electric vehicle and lithium-ion battery fire tactics, is don't expect government officials or others to make decisions or regulations when they not only don't understand the hazard, but they don't understand the full capabilities of the technology available to combat it. And the only persons that can do that, I feel, is first responders, is all of us here on the chat. Whether it's a piece of equipment that you like to use or something new that you've seen at a conference, to a certain technique or tactic or strategy to handle a firefighting or hazmat event. This is what propels the fire service forward and allows change to be made. So again, with that being said, thank you so much, everybody, for coming out. I want to run another event like this in a couple of months. We'll change up the topics a bit. It'll be the same great crew with the same great companies. But again, to anybody here, if you feel you can add value to this alliance, reach out to us, because we have some big opportunities here. And we're looking forward to seeing you all again. Appreciate your time, everybody. Keep safe. All right. Be in touch.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Brent. Thanks,
Thanks.
Greg.
Adam.